Hey everybody, Dan Keldsen with Next Feature today. The interview that I just wrapped up was with Dr. Jeff Chang. He is the co-founder of RadAI. He has a background as a radiologist. He has quite an interesting background going to college at the age of 13. He got an MBA. He has done a whole lot of things, way more than most people. This makes the saying, I think that's for the Marines, they do more by 7 in the morning than most people have done all day. It seems like he's packed a lifetime into his work, and his take with RadAI on AI, artificial intelligence, is a lot deeper than the sort of hype that we're getting lately this year, the insane year of AI around ChatGPT specifically, and everything that has spawned. So he talks about RadAI specifically addressing operational AI. What does that mean? It means work that actually needs to get done on a regular basis that is specifically targeted to helping radiologists, radiology departments, the people that they serve, for other doctors and providers in healthcare systems, and ultimately patients that are impacted by the results of their radiology reports. There's a whole universe that they're building out around this that helps to make all of that a much more seamless process, to take away a lot of the grunt work of dictating reports. That's 80% of the time of a radiologist is spent dictating a report. How can they streamline that process in the same kind of language, with very specific, exact language that they would use as individuals, as well as the practice of any given radiologist or the subspecialty or a larger role. And it's pretty interesting. We talk about a lot of details that I don't think you're going to ever hear about from anybody else anytime soon. It's very specific about radiology and healthcare. But I think the examples that we talk about actually are things that you could bring to other situations that you might have in your own organization, which is not about sort of surface level silly stuff, but it is about the very serious business of how do you more effectively run your business, prevent burnout, and make good things happen for your customers, your patients, whoever the ultimate audience is that you're serving. So with all that said, we cover a lot in this interview, and I hope you enjoy it, but let's go for it. Jeff, so nice to meet you. I've been a fan of, I honestly don't remember how I stumbled onto RadAI, but I'm very happy that I did. I'm looking forward to having a nice chat.
Yep, looking forward to it.
So AI is an interesting world these days. It's even people who have never known how to spell AI can now spell it, at least, and they have some awareness that something big seems to be happening. But your background, from what I understand, RadAI started in 2018, but you were involved in AI before that. So could you do a little run through on how you first entered AI and how you ended up starting RadAI?
Sure. So I have a bit of an unusual background. I started really young, went to college at 13, med school at 16. I became the youngest radiologist, second youngest doc on record in the US. So I was during business school. So I did business school at the same time as fellowship in musculoskeletal MRI. And I became really interested in startups, but didn't have enough of a technical background to really work on the kinds of startups that I was interested in. So eventually I went up to San Francisco for Dev Bootcamp, was a programming bootcamp, Ruby on Rails, JavaScript, and then went to University of Edinburgh to do some graduate work in machine learning. And so I came back early from that to work on another AI startup. And then this was back in 2013. And then my co-founder and I met at Dev Bootcamp. And so we've been working together for the last 10 years. We did a YC startup together for 4 years, and then we started RadAI in 2018. Really focused on my background in terms of time savings for radiologists, reducing radiologist fatigue and burnout, which was, by that point, practiced about 10 years of overnight shifts as a radiologist, just doing kind of heavy overnight volumes. And so really trying to figure out how to solve problems for radiologists.
We're thinking about redoing this book, The Gen Z Effect, which talks a lot about not just Gen Z is awesome, which they are, because I have Gen Z kids, but that we could all be taking advantage of some things like much different ways of learning, so that we could level people up much faster. Maybe not have everybody pursue being a doctor and going to business school and doing a startup at the same time, but sure. Maybe. That's wild. So 2018, RadAI starts, and for those who haven't figured it out yet, it is not rad as in, hey, rad waves, dude. It's radiology. And I do have to say Radiology.ai would be a far worse name than RadAI. So thank you for choosing something that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So as we record this, it's the same week in November 2023 that OpenAI had their big dev day, which who knows what's coming next, but it's like the most breathless coverage of any technology that I've ever seen, including when Steve Jobs first introduced the iPhone. It's like it's very different styles, but similarly like, mind-blowing kind of stuff. So you were involved in AI before 2018, but 2018 versus now is the burst of stream hype, I will call it, in 2023. Is that helping you or harming you? Because you have a very different approach for RadAI that's not huge and build a platform on top of me and we're going to build a store and all that. It's a very focused world that's about radiology and all things radiology. So is that helping you or is that harming you?
I would say initially it was confusing the investor market, but not necessarily. And also just generally, there was a lot of confusion and a lot of different thoughts and opinions diffused into the industry at different rates, right? But at the same time, because we have the only and first successful generative AI product in the industry, it's also helped us over time. And it's also helped us with some of our both internal applications that we wanted to use larger LLMs for, as well as some of our newer products. So we found good ways of utilizing it where it can be helpful, but also kind of making sure that the market is clear in terms of how generative AI works in radiology right now.
And so your background, did you start RadAI was Gen AI?
We were lucky. We started in 2018, right when Transformers first came out. So we've always been Transformer based, and we've actually, so unlike any other AI company in radiology or most of the other ones, we're focused purely on operational AI, so workflow, not on image interpretation. So we never did any of the image interpretation, so vision models and so on. Whereas, so our very first product was an automatically generating part of the radiology report. So it's always been text-based. And so our large language models have increased in size over time and become very specific to radiology because we've also built by far the largest radiology report data set, I believe, in the world that's usable for new model training. And so that's definitely helped us kind of keep ahead of the rest of the industry.
I did assume when I first saw you guys that, this must be about, I read an article in BBC that was talking about some advances in imagery and image interpretation specifically for radiology, but operational AI. So what does that actually mean for people who have not scoured your site like I have?
Sure. So in order to understand that a bit better, we have to kind of go into what a radiologist does every day.
Yes.
So we as radiologists, we spend most of our time dictating reports, right? So that's the end product of the radiologist is the radiology report. So we get 100, 150, 200, 250 studies a day. And each study is between 1 and maybe 5,000, 7,000 images at most. So for each of those studies, we look at them and then we dictate the report using speech recognition. So automatically generating it in the radiology reporting platform, but it requires a lot of manual dictation. And so we spend about 75, 80% of our time every day dictating reports because the radiologist is the one that interprets those studies and then puts out the report that the ordering provider, the clinician, reads that report. And so our first product, which we released in 2019, 2020, was to automatically generate the last section of that report. It's the conclusions, follow-up recommendations for the report based on everything the radiologist has dictated so far. So it's purely text from what the radiologist has dictated, so what they saw, to generate the last part of the report, customized to their exact language. So there we save radiologists about an hour per 9-hour shift. We reduce the number of words a radiologist has to say by usually about a third each day. And so that really helps with reducing fatigue and burnout. And in radiology, for the last 5 years running, it's been like OnMini is the most well-known professional imaging community in the world. They've called radiologist burnout the biggest issue facing radiology for the last 5 years because the volume of medical imaging just keeps rising every year. And the number of radiologists we have in the US does not rise, right? Because it's based on the number of residency positions that we have every year. And so there's only about 1,000 radiology residency positions every year that are trained. So we can't really increase the number of radiologists very quickly.
Okay.
And so over time,
yeah. So it's funny. So my today is one business that I have, and Plexicam is another one, which is like I'm using a Plexicam right now for interviews. So it looks like I'm looking at you because I am. And it's the whole dictation piece that so medical transcription has been a thing for probably 20 years, 30 years maybe.
So it used to be transcription, right? And then we moved to voice recognition over time. So it's radiology reporting software that automatically you dictate and it automatically puts it, and then you modify it manually before you sign it off. And so that way it speeds up the time frame by which the report gets to the ordering provider. So usually if you're at one of the larger health systems or radiology practices, you're trying to get ER studies out within half an hour and so on. So as soon as the study is done, you're trying to reduce the turnaround time back to the health system.
Okay.
And so that's only possible when you're actually dictating the report in real time and then generating the report and sending off that report. But yeah, we've been using voice recognition in radiology for about 15, 20 years now. No, so historically, the radiologists would dictate all of it. So they would dictate what they saw in the images, the findings, the reason for the study, so on. And then they would dictate their conclusions, their follow-up recommendations, summarization. And so instead of them dictating that last part manually, which is about a third of all the dictated words that a radiologist has to say, we base it on what they've seen so far. So the findings that are in the that they dictated, plus the reason for the study, and automatically generate that last section of text.
Okay, interesting.
So and just, instead of having to manually do something over and over again, it just automates that for them. It's not, it's beyond the large language models. It's much more the initial work we put into it over time, right? So in post-processing, there's over 300 additional models and algorithms that are running in production to automatically improve accuracy, language customization, and so on. And then we do a lot of work to ensure exact language for each radiologist because we have all of their historical reports as part of making sure that we train the model specifically for them.
Okay. And so by exact language, you mean that they use specific terms, phrases?
Every radiologist is different in terms of what they prefer. And so radiologists, we care a lot about our exact language most of the time just because it's how we were trained, the way that we use differentials and diagnoses, the specific incidental findings that we had mentioned, so on and so forth, the order we put things in is very specific to the radiologist. So we typically think of that as like the art of radiology. It is really how you want to frame the report. And so in order for you to really save a radiologist's time, you have to get their exact language because otherwise they would spend time making edits and so on. So this is really meant to provide time savings and reduced fatigue and burnout. So it really has to be as close to what they would say as possible.
So one of the common challenges in any industry or especially in healthcare is how, as somebody providing a solution, how do you get in there and get a foothold? Because there are some massive, players out there that are spending probably billions of dollars to get in to sell solutions every single day. So how did you go about? I mean, you have a very different angle, but how do you think you got in versus another kind of approach that may not have been coming from somebody with a radiology background?
I think to some extent, initial relationships plus a useful product that could apply across pretty much all types of studies. Whereas like if you think about imaging AI, the issue tends to be it only applies to, say, 3% of studies because it's a very specific imaging AI algorithm. And then it may not really provide time savings. It might accuracy slightly for a particular diagnosis. Whereas for radiology groups, they really care a lot about how do we reduce the fatigue and burnout of radiologists? How do we save radiologists time? And so we had this specific value add that made a lot of difference for radiology practices. And so over time, and the product's been out for 4 years now, so the ability to gradually expand to more and more customers has been key. So at this point, we work with about a third of all radiology groups and health systems in the U.S. So it's been able to build that out over time.
One of the things that I always propose to my clients was, behavior change can be difficult. It's not as difficult necessarily as all the historical myths would say, like 21 days for a new behavior and all that kind of stuff. But why not make it easy for people to adopt a new process or a new system? So it seems like you have 3 products, is that right?
4 products. Yeah.
Okay. So it seems like one of the approaches is, so SaaS and the cloud and all that is a thing, and it's fairly well established. But I saw repeated in the way that you describe things that, it's minimal to no interruption in the workflow. So if we took like a day in the life of a radiologist, the day before using your, and then the day after, where do you get inserted, and what is this sort of integration that happened?
Yeah, so that was really the key, or one of the keys of our first product. We really wanted to make sure it had zero change to radiologist workflow. So that there's absolutely no change from before and after, and it requires 0 clicks. So it automatically inserts at the right time when they get to the right section of the report without them having to do anything else, right? And so that way it doesn't have any learning curve, and it's very easy for the radiologists to get used to it. We've heard from radiology practices, some of the largest in the country, that their radiologists got used to it within a day just because there was nothing new to learn. So we try to take that approach with all of our products, but some of them are, of course, much harder to do that for. Like for a worklist product where you have to get radiologists used to a new worklist, that, of course, isn't really feasible. Whereas like our new radiology reporting platform, which just won Best New Radiology Software a week ago from Mini, again, the biggest professional imaging community. There we try to make sure it doesn't involve any changes from existing templates and macros, the way that they currently do their workflow. We support all of the existing workflows as well as adding some new functionality using generative AI. So trying to not require any changes at all to the radiologist workflow or to the health system's workflow is really key for us.
So sometimes the barrier is the technology team that needs to get involved says, hey, we're too busy, this looks too complex, it's whatever. They've probably been burned many times by ERP systems or something equally terrible. And then there's the users side. So it sounds like so from the technology standpoint, you found ways to insert yourself into, is it into specific systems? Is there like a limited set of systems that you really have to care about?
Yeah, so we integrate directly into all versions of the main voice recognition, the radiology reporting platforms that are used in the US and overseas as well for the most part. And so I try to make that completely seamless in terms of a 0-click solution.
And so why those guys do this? If they're already doing the voice recognition transcription, why isn't that something that was just a natural?
It's a really difficult product to do well historically, just because it requires a lot of individual radiologist understanding how the radiologist thinks and works on a daily basis and customizing to their exact workflows. And then responding to radiologist feedback quickly. So improving the product wherever there's feedback or questions or support requests or so on. And usually the larger companies tend to work towards what we think of as like the lowest common denominator, where it sort of works for everybody, but they don't have to provide that day-to-day individual radiologist support. And so as a startup, we've been able to kind of do that better than most, I think.
How do you manage? So healthcare privacy is a concern, or I hope it is a concern. How do you balance out between building, whether it's an LLM or any other technique that you're using, you're building out the data set that is used to help parse all this stuff. How do you balance that out versus making sure that it's leaking private data?
Yeah, so we're SOC 2 Type 2 HIPAA Plus certified. So we have ongoing annual third-party audit cycles. And of course, the infrastructure, it's all on the various cloud environments in our VPCs, our virtual private clouds. So everything is very carefully monitored. We do third-party external penetration testing as well every year. So essentially, you have to satisfy both health system and radiology practice requirements for protection of data, right? We also have, at this point, I believe the most accurate de-identification pipeline for radiology reports, just because we work with so many radiology reports. It tends to be, I think, about 3 times as accurate as the next most accurate solution on the market, just because, we spend so much time on radiology reporting.
Yeah. Okay. And as far as the when you're producing the impressions and the summaries, is that then stored on your system, or do you insert that into some other system of record where it's ultimately kept, or both maybe?
Oh, well, it's inserted directly into the existing speech radiology reporting platform. And so that goes directly kind of the existing workflow, right? So we integrate seamlessly into those platforms. We automatically insert into those platforms, and then they sign off the normal way that they would. So at the same time, that is stored for future model training. So any edits that they make and so on, so you can further improve the results for our radiologist users over time. That is de-identified before storage, though.
On the patient side, there's a lot of talk about like patient journeys and customer journeys and fill in the blank, whatever industry we're talking about journeys. When you're doing that sort of alerting notification system, you could build it separately, and it's a slice of your own solution, or there could be a notification layer. I talk about meta layers a lot, so a notification layer, a security login layer, search layer, things like that. Do the systems that you plug into, are there like a notification layer that you can just take advantage of, or do you need to handle that sort of independently for this follow-up stuff?
It's both. So say, for example, for continuity, so what continuity does is make sure that patients come back for their follow-up imaging for specific incidental findings. So when we talk about incidental findings, it's like pulmonary nodules, liver lesions, thyroid nodules that need to be followed up in 3 months, 6 months, a year, because they could turn out to be cancer, right? So there's this what we call patient leakage problem among health systems, where often the patient and the ordering provider are not aware that they need to come back for follow-up, right? And so if the patient doesn't come back in 3 months or 6 months and they turn out to have cancer, then it gets significantly worse, can metastasize and so on before it gets caught. And so that significantly worsens patient morbidity and mortality. So really, for health systems, they're trying to solve this problem of making sure that patients come back for their follow-up imaging, get cancer diagnosed sooner, and then get treated promptly. So in terms of that communication, it depends on what the health system prefers, right? So we can do in Epic, for example, MyChart app communications to the patients through the Epic instance, or in-basket messages to the ordering provider. But we could also support direct mail to the patient, which is through a separate HIPAA-compliant mailing service, or fax-based workflow, or so on. So every health system is somewhat different in terms of how they want to handle that communication. And so all of that can be configured.
Okay. So you don't have the problem that most email marketing systems have, where it may take up to 72 years to update our systems.
Yeah, we try to make sure that the communications are intelligent, right? So that we don't send messages that are unnecessary. Because both ordering providers, physicians, and everyone else gets far too many messages these days. So
in your system, are you doing the monitoring of so that like the of the system for the notification piece, or is that something that you can tap into in Epic or these other systems?
Oh yeah, we track in terms of how many studies are being closed and percentage. So there's a customizable analytics dashboard for the health system as well. But and then we can also we started doing working on automation of notes in Epic for communication as well. So if you communicate with the patient successfully, then you can automatically add a note to Epic and so on. So it just depends on how the system wants it implemented.
So we started off talking about OpenAI and this whole dev day. So there's been more hype about AI.
Sure.
But has there been anything? Let's just not just this week, but let's say this year, that you entered, January 1st, 2023, your product map, your plan for this year for RadAI was this. And then some of these announcements, like ChatGPT 3.5, then 4, now Turbo, now, the App Store, all that kind of stuff. Was there anything that significantly changed the way that you had been planning to go for the rest of 2023 or into 2024, or was it just, isn't that nice? Maybe now more people know what AI can do.
No, I would say that we modify what is important in our product roadmap on a probably every few weeks based on what we find both in the industry, our market presence, the specific things that we decide that we need to prioritize. So there's always rapid changes in terms of what we decide that we need to focus on. And so like the fourth product that we just launched, we had a big launch day at the end of September, was barely kind of in mind's eye earlier at the beginning of this year, right? And so there's been a lot of work very specifically to make sure that we build out the right products and focus on the things that our customers most need. And so that will change based on what gets released, that will change based on what we find has the most interest in the market and so on. And then for other products as well, of course, right? So like continuity, we heard more and more from our existing customer base that they wanted a pure pulmonary workflow as well. So being able to build out a workflow specific for the pulmonologists, being able to track the larger pulmonary nodules, and then based on TNM sizing, classification, risk stratification, to determine which ones need biopsy and PET CT and so on. So we focus on different features depending on what our customers request, what our potential customers request, and so on. So our first product is the automatic generation of the impression of the radiology report. So saving radiologists time. And it also does automated consensus guideline recommendations. So that's the follow-up recommendation language based on what national consensus guidelines recommend. Our second product is the follow-up care coordination product. So making sure patients come back for their follow-up imaging. And then our third product is a smart work list. So making sure that radiologists get the right study to read at the right time. When you think about what radiologists do every day, we spend... when you say 100, 150, 200 studies a day, and then if you have a group, even a medium-sized group of like 30, 40 radiologists, that's many thousands of studies coming in every single day, right? So it requires a lot of work to make sure that each radiologist is reading the right studies based on their subspecialty, based on their credentialing for the particular hospitals, based on the specific SLAs for each individual imaging site, and so on and so forth. And specific outpatient providers that only want certain radiologists to read their studies. So all of that has to be determined, ideally automated, right? So we can save radiologists more time and make sure they get the right study. And then finally, our fourth product is this new radiology reporting platform. So replacing kind of the existing radiology reporting solutions on the market. There we automatically generate more of the report for the radiologist in their preferred personal templates, customized to their language, and just automatically fill it out for them if they just dictate a few sentences. So how do we save radiologists more time?
Not to give away too much, but is there anything that you're particularly excited about that's in your...
There's new features in each of these products that's coming out. We'll be demoing a number of new generative AI elements at RSNA. So RSNA is the biggest radiology conference every year. It's about 50, 60,000 people in Chicago at the end of November. And so we'll be doing many demos to potential customers for our latest product and some of our other products as well. And so there will be a number of new generative AI features that we'll be demoing there as well.
And it's and I ask as far as the task list management, how before RadAI and that product, how would groups manage their workload for assessments?
Yeah, for smaller, medium-sized groups, historically the work list was in the PACS. So PACS is the Picture Archival Communication Service, is where you see the images and where they're also stored, typically with a vendor-neutral archive. So it typically, each PACS has its own basic work list, where radiologists are pulling studies off the same list. Over time, there have been different work list solutions, which have varying levels of intelligence in terms of how much automation there is and how much specific shift customization you can get. There's also, say, for example, Epic has its own built-in work list for many practices around the country. So I think it's as you get to a larger practice, you have more and more studies pouring in, and you need more and more subspecialization of the radiologist, and that's where a smart work list really comes handy, or it becomes necessary.
Yeah, cool. No, this was the kind of information I wanted to get out of the conversation, and I want to stay in touch with you, see what things develop.
Sounds good.
And we'll see what 2024 brings. I have a feeling that I am hoping that, despite the hype, I hope that OpenAI's sort of incredible pace that they've been on releasing helps so next feature today was how do you need to take action and not wait around until the next thing happens. So if it gets other organizations to at least pay more attention to AI, maybe not on AI and maybe not actually implement AI from another solution, but if it gets them to think differently about how they are using technology to improve whatever it is that they do, then hallelujah, I'm a happy man. And I hope that there's something that comes out of the short. I think there was a huge shock factor this week from the Dev Day that people are going to be reeling from for months. But I hope it helps to inspire folks like you to. It sounds like you're also a very agile, nimble group, so that this is not as likely to be a problem for you.
I mean, I do worry, of course, about kind of the impact on society as a whole. In terms of the potential job loss, not specifically in radiology, because what radiologists do is very complicated and includes a lot of other things that AI can't do at all. But in many other industries, we're starting to see kind of this potential job impact in the short to medium term. So we need to figure out how best to protect that. Say, for example, the current negotiations underway for the Screen Actors Guild and so on.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it all progresses over the coming year.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Because really,
well, Jeff,
in radiology, for example, it is very much about augmentation, right? So how do we save radiologists time? It's about how do we improve the life of the radiologist and improve their workflow. So ideally, those are the applications that, technology should be support for humanity, not like a replacement for humanity, ideally. So
yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Jeff.
Sure.
And I'll circle back. And in the meantime, best of luck as you unveil what else you got cooking, and keep plowing on serving your audience.
Thank you. It's
all
great
right.
meeting
Thanks,
you.
Jeff.